welcome to Weird Rap episode 10,000, featuring Rhys Langston. We'll also continue the great adventures of Kounterclockwise series. And to start things off, I am joined by Lt Headtrip to weigh in on some new releases. To begin, we discuss In All Its Messiness, which is an EP by Black. This one just caught me completely out of left field. Never heard of this guy before, but immediately grabbed my attention. Very abrasive and loud out the gate. But it's not just that. I feel like there's a lot of tones and textures and variety.
Definitely.
I used to be a person that just loved hearing like a full hour of just loud, angry,
anything.
Metal, hardcore,
punk
whatever.
rock, yeah.
But maybe I'm getting old or whatever, but now
you live in the
nowadays,
woods now.
I like a little more relaxing vibes. So for me, it was nice to have the loudness and the high energy bursts sort of couched in a little bit more inviting rhythms and melodies.
Yeah, I feel that. So you gave me a few albums to listen to, and I picked two. And I picked this one. I basically just skimmed them, right? I went in, picked around, and was like, all right, I could listen, to this record a few times before we talk about it. And for the record, I only listened to this record twice. But I didn't realize how much aggressive stuff was on here, and I absolutely love it when a rapper starts off a record just angry and yelling. I think that it's a great way to say, what up? And then the second song is just like smooth, right. And it kind of goes back and forth. Now there's like an anger the entire time, but I really feel like starting with, it's just a bold move, and I really appreciate it. I don't think enough people are comfortable coming out the gate hot because they feel like they're going to scare people away. Clearly Black is not afraid of that. The first track on In All Its Messiness starts with like a messy drum pattern, like this chopped up vocal sample. It's kind of in the background. It almost sounds like Doc Laundry, the producer for that track, took a Prefuse 73 track and then chopped it up even more. It like takes it to a whole other level, which I also really like. I appreciate that chaos.
Yeah.
Black's voice over top of it really like brings you back in. He's a real visceral performer, like from the booth. I've never seen Black live, and a great hook writer. Right, these hooks, they're like simple. They pop in and then pop out. They only take up a little bit of space. Really good, just repeated mantras, that kind of tie the concept of each track together, and then bounces back to another verse. In that first song, when his vocals kind of come in and tame the madness immediately, demanding attention, I again just like found that pocket within the first it's like 7 seconds in, and you're already in the project in a medias res. That wastes no time, which I also appreciate. 1 through 4, tracks 1 through 4, right? It's like every other song is super intense and angry with like screamed vocals. And then the next track is a little more mellow. And I really appreciate that. One of my favorite things about this record, which is going to keep bringing me back, is how every song sounds different. The range of styles. A lot of rappers talk about having a lot of styles. This motherfucker has a million styles. And how many tracks are even on this? 7?
Yeah,
it's quick.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah, y'all at home, if you haven't listened to this yet, pop it on. It's quick. Even if you don't like aggressive stuff, you're going to find pockets that you really enjoy, and then it's over. And then you can decide if you want to listen to it again. But definitely give it one spin. I really dig the full scream, like the full top of the lungs. I guess bottom of the lungs is more...
the guttural
yell. I really appreciate the full scream. Crushes that.
Another thing that I was thinking about when I was listening to it is like its title suggests the messiness, the messy nature of this, which is, he's based in New York City, which there's a large school in the like contemporary New York rap underground, if you want to call it that. That's also, I would say, messy, but in a much more mellow, laid back, almost smoked out, like hazy kind of messiness.
Yeah.
And this one is messy in a more like, it is very rhythmic. Like he's pretty like in the pocket, but overall the mix, the master, the production is very rough around the edges.
Definitely.
And
this project is self-proclaimed not mixed,
right.
not mastered. I don't remember exactly the wording on the Bandcamp, but
yeah.
it sounds a lot like a lot of other projects that I hear that claim to be mixed and mastered. And I'm like, how much time do they spend with that? I love it. Out the gate, I'm like, okay, thanks for telling me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to expect a super sonically balanced album, and it still sounds really dope.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like basically this kid is full of energy, and it's bursting at the seams, and that's really evident in there.
I really want to see this rapper live.
Yeah.
And I would even just try to get a show going with him off the merit of this one.
This is only their second project.
I know, I saw the last one. I haven't listened to it yet, but
yeah, I need to go back and check that one out. But definitely be keeping my ear to their future releases.
Nice. I think that if I had to pick a track that stood out, it's Pilates.
Okay. Let's play that one right here.
The beat. Let's play it right here. Pop it in.
Walking with the stick when I flash it, it's over. They just snack food in the snack food. Glass drawer, yapping the action. Leave it half full, bad move. Taz towel over the head. Moving off of the ledge. Coming closer, bad move. Ass backwards, got trash sweet in the backwood. How that figure, I been that nigga. He gon' break, we gon' Uncle Ben that nigga. Yo, get bad, Pilates, make him sit flat, nigga.
Dope track, right?
Yes.
The plopping sounds and the production really get to me with like these really like heavy ominous synths, and then you hear like a. It's really cool. It sounds like I'm kind of in nature playing with like a synthesizer, dressed in like a metal suit, and using Uncle Ben as a verb.
All right.
And the last track is like the most different sounding track on the whole record. It has this like the southern trap-esque flow. Right. Which again, like every track is unique, but they all fit together well. I'm big on like the album sounding cohesive, and this is a good little snippet. I really like it front to back.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for putting me on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I use my white voice for Alexa.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's so many one-liners, and again, I mentioned this last time I was on the podcast, but the first things that hit me when I listen to a project are the general vibes, the mix, the production, and the flow. And it takes me a while to get back into the lyrics.
Likewise.
So that's what I'm coming off of. I listened to these for the first time this week. So I haven't gone into the lyrics too much. I get what's going on, and I'm looking forward to listening back with a keener ear to what he's actually saying.
From a cursory listen as well, like I haven't listened to this more than 2 or 3 times. The lyrics don't seem to be super deeply thought out. They seem a bit more superficial than for instance this next album we're going to be discussing. But still definitely a level of cleverness and uniqueness within there. It's definitely not the same old talking nonsense. So
and there's unique rhymes, and while it might not be the level of like poetic deepness that we're about to pop into with this Rhys Langston album, there's definitely a very deep level of intentionality and personality and emotion. It's certainly self-expression in the rawest sense. And I feel that sometimes writers like this just need to get it onto paper and just rely on that raw natural talent instead of maybe taking time and tinkering with language as much to get their message across.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that.
You get a definitely strongly defined sense of character, similar to like we were just discussing ODB a little bit earlier. Like
Exactly.
He's not the most like lyrically,
right? Rhyming the same word with the same word, doing whatever he wants, but just brilliant in his expression.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely brilliant in his expression.
All right, so what'd you think of this?
Grapefruit Radio, so dope.
Rhys Langston, Grapefruit Radio, yes.
Fantastic. Both my partner and my cat love the album.
Nice.
They both chilled through the whole thing. My partner listens to a lot of rap and often just stays quiet.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not catching her attention, this one, she was like, dang, and another track that's really dope. Nice. So it was good to I love listening to music with people. So that was nice. The great opener, just obscenely poetic. I love the quick scattered flow next to a slow melodic hook. Brings us back in. The production's like real bouncy and fun. Again, kind of like scattered, but pockets for days, you know, meshes perfectly. I really like the mix. The vocals sit right in there instead of right on top, which is what a lot of people are going for these days.
Right.
But I think that the style really lends itself to being in the pocket of the production as opposed to on top of it. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I
Overall,
appreciate that.
Langston's like clearly observant and thoughtful. Great lyrical content. A lot to pick through if you're looking for a record to listen to and enjoy in your car and also something to listen to on headphones, after you smoke a bunch of weed. This fulfills both of those. Track 2 gets spacey. We're immediately in outer space by track 2, production-wise, at least. And we get my man, Fatboy Sharif, on track 2. Putting a feature on the second track. Clearly, Rhys Langston, I hate to assume, but clearly is more concerned with the vibe and the sonic flow of the album than trying to front load it with solo tracks and be the star of the record, which I can appreciate.
Yeah.
Because, putting a feature, especially with like Sharif on the second song, is really distracting your audience from you being the main protagonist of this project. And overall, the content seems to be, Rhys Langston is not a protagonist. He's a part of a universe, and it's more observation than self-inflation and stuff like that.
Yeah, and perhaps the radio title of the album is like, could refer in part to how he's sharing the spotlight with other people. But
yeah, that's a good point. I think that the ad lib at the beginning of track 2 as well is great. It's like really confident. I'm gonna misquote it, but it's something like people kept on asking. I wasn't sure where I fit in, right? But then I learned to ask how do other people fit in with me?
It's like I couldn't sure if I could rap with other people, but then I started to ask myself, can they rap with me?
And that's a great turning point. And it's confident without being cocky.
Right.
Which confidence is a huge part of rap, and competition and self love is a huge part of rap. And it's cool that he got that out of the way on the second track without being like aggressively cocky, which, there's also a place for that. Also in that second track, his third verse after Sharif spits, we were just talking about how rapping fast was really big for a little bit and went out of fashion. This new Micah 9 book that came out has brought back up this discussion of like rapping real fast, and Rhys crushes some really fast rapping on the third verse of the second track that I can appreciate. Coming in and out of it, it's not a full 16 of double time, but I can appreciate that.
Yeah, which is a nice contrast to Sharif's much slower style too.
Yeah. Were you saying Rhys is from LA?
Yeah.
Nice. I can hear the vibes. I can hear the LA style in there a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Progressive vibes, conservative ligature. Was the mouthpiece to the wind, caught up on the video. Short selling triplexes for shares of Nvidia. Geothermal index on a Rolodex and living rooms. Kitchenette trivia, dismember beans and landlords. Clean up on the aisle, industry and play cake and chores. Heavy plumage, petrochemicals, scare petrichor. Peter Baelish, Russia and the duty producers and state executives. Beseeching expedient narrative, declarative, clearance, vector, victor. In flight meal with a plate of zeal. Order to those that got their prepared statements already languished. But I'm off anguish that I'm most happily
I as well, like you, will focus on the sonic aspect of an album first, but this one I more got caught up in trying to decipher the lyrics than properly even absorbing the sonic qualities of it. I kept wanting an inroad to the song lyrically to know at least like a little bit what the hell any of it's about.
Yeah.
To the point where I asked Rhys to also send the addendum PDF with this, hoping that maybe there would be footnotes or an intro that would enlighten me to the themes of it more. And it really only further confounded me. Like, and I've always been a listener of rap music that really appreciates lyrics that I don't necessarily understand, but I think I can tell there's been a lot of thought and care put into
definitely
the meaning and the poetry of it. So like someone like Dose One, for example, like I could tell you like what maybe 1% of his lyrics mean, but I still like count him as one of my favorites. And this guy, I kind of put in a similar category. The first word of the album, it's some Russian word. I had to go look it up, and it's like he's making no compromises as far as like trying to dumb things down or make it accessible to most people.
He's definitely just doing his thing.
So yeah, long story short, I was really trying to decipher the lyrics, and I didn't get too far, but I made a little bit of headway. Me and my girl were trying to decipher some of the songs and the PDF booklet. But
which is great, by the way. Do you get that when you download the album on Bandcamp or something? Oh wait, I only found this on SoundCloud.
I don't know. It is on Bandcamp now.
Okay, cool.
And you can buy the booklet as a printed.
That's great. I need a copy of that.
Yeah, I think I would too, because the writing is pretty amazing. I think in that booklet, like it's beautiful, even though it's confusing. Where he's talking about the theory behind the grapefruit radio concept and.
Yeah, I didn't have time to get through it, but I skimmed it and was like, all right, this is a wonderful companion piece to an already dense album. Language lovers, word lovers, you're going to absolutely love this record.
Yes. There's a lot of room for interpretation, and I think it definitely invites like focused pondering. But yeah, the sonic quality is generally appealing to me and interesting.
Yeah, I don't usually when I make a record, I try to just work with one producer. It's the way that I've been doing it for a long time, and it makes it cohesive for me. And this record, I was surprised. I kind of got up and looked at the producer credits halfway through listening, and I was surprised to see so many different producers on it because it sounds so cohesive. Not that it's impossible to accomplish that, but clearly Rhys is curating the production on here on a very intentional level and just has a good ear, It also doesn't sound like he's trying too hard, which is something we were talking about with double timing, like does your verse sound like it takes every ounce of your being to do it? Right. Or is it more like this West Coast fluid double time? And that's kind of just the entire vibe of this. It should sound like it's hard because I can barely understand what's going on the record. There's so much happening, but it still sounds effortless. It kind of reminds me of the Pan Amsterdam vibe of this like effortlessness, while you can tell that it was really heavily curated. I find that I really like the features on the record. Koreatown Oddity really adds like a really smooth verse to the record. I think it's only a 16, and it just like really fits in the pocket. My homie Big Flowers crushes, what is that, DJ Khalid Muff Diving.
Which is an amazing song title.
Yeah, it really is. And I think there's another feature on that song too, to go out with like the homies, on a final track. It's not the last track, but it's a late track. Is a really cool thing to do. The last track, I Will Stop at Nothing, sounds like we just got to the after party. Some records like to put the last song as a goodbye. This sounds like on to the next adventure. Like it sounds like we finally got done at the party we're at. We're on our way to the after party. It's funky. We're like cruising down the street. It's nighttime. And then as the track ends, as the album ends, there's a low pass filter that kind of just like muffles the sound, like they like slowly close the door on us, like you're not part of this anymore, which is a really cool way to say goodbye. I feel like overall, I'm really looking forward to coming back in, picking through the dense lyricism, looking at the book, like reading through it, looking at some of the artwork, just putting the artwork up on the screen while I listen to it. This is definitely going to get a few more listens from me at least.
Awesome. So what's up with you? What's up with Whack?
So we're my label, WATKK, which henceforth I will refer to as Whack, has been active behind the scenes. We're getting a lot of stuff ready for next year. We put out Teddy Faley's record earlier this year. We have an album that I can't talk about quite yet coming out in October. Brand new rap artist. And I have the record that I'm going to be putting out that you sneak previewed a song from in November.
Oh, awesome.
In the meantime, we just put out a new Teddy Faley single, which kind of picks up where we left off with Dear Friends, the last track on Teddy Faley's Teddy Brown Brown.
I just listened to this briefly, but what is he talking about exactly on the song?
So to give the listeners a little context before we dive in, it's basically like he started writing this as kind of a heartless obituary. It's an incomplete list. It's simply a list of people that have died that he knows in the Baltimore area. And I mean, most of these stories, from what I gather, are mostly true. And again, he like has a heartless approach to it. But then he talks about his mom dying, which is the subject of one of the favorite songs off of Teddy Brown Brown for most of the listeners, a song about cigarettes, but it's actually about my dead mother. And then he talks about Cubby Bear, who's also a Baltimore-based rapper who passed away a few years ago, who was a good friend of Teddy's. And then the second half of the song, he totally loses it. He like tried to do this without any emotion, but just talks about his dog, his best friend, who passed away a year ago. And the second half of the song sounds like this dude's like straight up having a panic attack. He must have used his first, verse that he recorded. I asked him to stop re-recording. I was like, good, leave it. In fact, I tried to take over the duties because it's extremely powerfully emotional. And it's dope. I mean, the dude spits. He's just an excellent wordsmith. And I think that you might want to sit down for this one, but you can get through it. I believe in you.
But shouldn't I have seen the clues? Either I ain't ever even noticed she was sick, or she ain't want nobody knowing that shit. Cubby Bear was Josh, that loss I'm navigating slow, and I don't like to talk about it, so I don't.
Why get this one right?
Gus, my bigger brother, teacher, best friend and a dog. He leave the room when I record, and now he isn't anywhere at all. The seizure started years ago. His kidneys were diseased. He left the room forever. 5:15 on August 17th. That's some empty space in every place I'm occupying every day. I try to talk it down from heights. It hides behind its mother's legs. I mean, it's hard to argue with an argument that dumb and vague, but I can't throw his goddamn leash away. My phone still got reminders every 8 and 8. Gus's meds. Every time I try deleting them, a voice is in my head like, what you are about to do can never be changed. There ain't no harm in it waiting. Why not give it a day? And that's no big ask, not on its face, but in context, it's not me that spent it in pain. So spare him the cape, just do what the fuck happens and get out the way. Sometimes the hardest moves you gotta make been already made. I think a couple bars ago the metaphor changed. If he was here, he would've caught that mistake. But I know I'm gonna die, and I know you gonna die. And every 60 seconds costs 120 lives.
A few other recent releases I like to mention. This actually came out back in May, but finally caught my attention. It is Where Are the Bugs, an album by Sice Greeny, Feek, and Lungs. It is like some gritty, grim, NYC serious guy rap, but the beats are just batshit crazy. And I enjoy it.
Still stuck on your second step. We continuous like waveforms. Wave files get paid for. Why hit the stage if you ain't trying to dominate the boards? Don't even need to look up. Match the sun when I step. Got unlimited cookups. Resurrect, outstanding in the flesh. Actions after you manifest. Plans turning into advantages. Getting advanced with it. Admire my transition. Dead lung.
Yo, chat, air hallucinations made the wasteland vivid. Watch when it's hauled across the park, the corpse hard rigid. Drop a shovel till you start digging. Yo, plug a laugh, it sound like Mars Simpson. We burn it rust a lot like
This and all the other releases mentioned are linked in the show notes. Algernon Cornelius put out one of my favorite albums of last year, and his new one is similarly strange and all over the map. It's called Me No Sen, You No Come.
T-shirts. Who got rid of this? If I don't get them, they gon' get you all. Replace the battle with a barrel full of alcohol. Clean lines over time, will a Buddha by no lack on Terry Moella. That big beware, then a truck with no umbrella. Free shots, detox, why not? Who got another bottle? This necklace wine, baby, make my class a double. But we got 20 packs every single day. That's a Henry fucking Hoover to suck the pain.
Isidora's Shroud is the new release by Vulturelung, aka P-Rex. It's a collection of bleak, degraded beats with fittingly gloomy raps.
Blessings survive. My brain's full of negative spatial relation. Derived from a hologram, all of all hollow. It's a tall order of aches and pains. This conflict just sacrifice. Sometimes I get depressed just being sentient being. Sometimes I feel less myself than when my memory fails me. Till then I keep sailing into a sandstorm. The feeling of melting, this feeling of feeding on forgotten subsides the reliving and more to acknowledge the learning. I will never underestimate myself.
And Church is the new album by Billy Woods and Messiah Music. It's got Woods being his usual self, rapping over Messiah's kind of muted, dusty, melodic loops. Pretty pleasing to my ears.
For the love, you don't gotta open it up. I got wide nostrils, woolly hair, feet made of brass, ghost over Teddy Pendergrass. If I see the devil moving fast, send looking ass niggas through the looking glass. Hospital vending machine, D2 is the Cheetos. New Year's Eve, I snuck in the Clico. Puerto Rico, Yuca fries, Louis the 14th in a vape, you hit it twice. I hope it's nothing but love in paradise. Hospital vending machine, D2 is the Cheetos. New Year's Eve, I snuck in.
And here we have an interview with one of rap's most underrated talents, in my opinion. If you're not aware, I implore you to open your ears and your minds to the brilliant wordsmith, composer, and visual artist that is Rhys Langston.
Let's start at the beginning. You were born in October of 1993, right?
Yes, I was born in Los Angeles, California, technically at Santa Monica Hospital. That's where my parents happened to be when I breached the walls, as it were. Yeah, I grew up in LA. I spent my first, 12 years in Silver Lake, Los Feliz, and that's where it's kind of known now. That's like kind of the hipster area of LA, but it was just this place that kind of served as like a neoliberal cosmopolitan model. All the kids, were like on their skateboards, more or less multiracial, diverse. The rent was affordable. There was a very strong community atmosphere. People were health conscious. And my mother is Black. My father is Jewish. That's a very simplified version of it. And so it was this kind of this pluralistic environment. They were both working actors, so they didn't really have a lot of money, especially when they separated when I was very young. Like my dad was struggling and my mom was struggling on their own to pay the bills. There was always art around the house because they were artists. And art was never this like pie in the sky pursuit. They definitely from an early age got me involved in dance. I was in a ballet company for a little bit on a scholarship because the director was like, oh, this kid's athletic and he's graceful. It can mold him. I had to leave because they wouldn't let me keep my green mohawk that I had. And yeah, I feel like I got just really blessed and to be exposed to that like very interesting moment in time that now is kind of like the model for every, hipster neoliberal person to aspire to. My parents separated. They moved to different parts of town. A place that I ended up more consistently in Hollywood than in West LA. And I ended up kind of most living with my mom, though, just because she had more space for me. She ended up moving to close to Leimert Park in Los Angeles. And Leimert Park, as you know, is known for, beyond rap music, just the kind of a Black cultural center of Los Angeles, but particularly what I'm interested in, jazz and rap, like West Coast innovations really happened there. And I wasn't even interested in music, I was playing competitive basketball slightly with my arm twisted behind me because I was athletic, and it was just, I had a kind of a helicopter father who wanted me to go to Division I school, and I kind of just, heart wasn't in it. So I was, painting and
We're talking about high school years now, or what?
middle and high school, middle school and high school years. So like from the time I was maybe 12 until 18.
And what's your like fitting in with the peers situation in school and everything?
Well, yeah. I think when I was in middle school, we still kind of lived in that area, and I had a continuity of friends. It was interesting. I was kind of allowed to be like all aspects of myself. I was the super athletic kid, but also I was in the magnet gifted program. I was like 3 grades ahead in mathematics. And I would also just like play World of Warcraft online with my friends and stuff like that. And there was just, and I would, I actually got involved as well in an arts conservatory, for visual arts conservatory for middle school and high school kids. And I ended up going to that for like 2 years because I showed an advanced skill in the visual arts. So I was allowed to do everything, and then it was just funny, like basketball kind of took over, and partially I like was down for it, but I didn't realize the extent to which it would cannibalize a lot of other things. Because I was a kid who, like, at 13, I got my first dunk on a regulation rim, and just like that kind of, I think, set off in people's eyes that that I should have been one-track minded on that.
Right.
And when you're that age, you don't sometimes know how to speak up for yourself. So in middle school ended. I missed my middle school graduation to go to a fucking basketball camp to get ranked. And then I ended up being recruited to go to I went to public school my whole life, and I ended up going recruited to go to a private high school because they had a good basketball program. And there that was really alienating. That was like some of the worst times of my young life.
Yeah, how so?
I felt like all the different sides of me that I was able to express were somehow very strange to people. And I could also sense that, like, I don't know, I definitely got a lot of the aggression out of myself when I was younger, and like had really good people around me to be like, maybe you shouldn't like fight people, and you should be mindful of like how you just kind of act around people and stuff like that. And so I learned a level of sensitivity, I think, and I went into these scenarios where like it was just really hyper masculine and very problematic in a lot of other ways. And so I was very incongruous, not only because I was someone who could dunk, would play World of Warcraft and the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, and would draw and shit, and was into academics, but like because I was a sensitive person who, like, I don't know, I didn't really like having like the toughening up fucking hazing going on. And so I ended up honestly being like, people would see it differently because they want to, who were involved, but I was really bullied, like very aggressively, by my teammates and by the coach, like by the coach too. Like the adults took part in it. Like I was me being bullied was like their bonding exercise. And I
like, how do you think they saw you? Like, how did you stick out to them, do you think?
Well, the way I talked, like, definitely, like, they're like, oh, is this kid black or not? Oh, wait, he talks this way. He probably isn't. He's like he's, I don't know. I mean, honestly, there was a big racial component to it too, because like there were a lot of black kids who were like at this private school, and they were trying to bolster their identity by contrasting themselves to me. But there was also like white kids on the team who would like feed into that too. And it's not about like the tragic mulatto stuck in the middle shit. It's just more like they they were fucking wolves, you know, waiting to pounce on just like anything that they could.
Sure.
And I just happened to like, I don't know, kind of be a nerd who looked and acted the way that wasn't expected of who I supposedly was.
Yeah.
And you know, during that time, I would like write like, you know, joke raps with my friends and shit, and I think that also like spurred me because I was very like diffuse in my interests and shit, but that definitely spurred me to get more into like mainstream Black culture and media than I was. Just because it was kind of like, oh, I was genuinely interested in it, obviously. It was like, oh, if I like can know more references as a defense mechanism, maybe like people won't clown me as much if I like know like if I have all the references they're talking about and shit. So like it's very interesting. And you know, through that I just started like, you know, there was definitely like an inward, I was a lot more inward at that moment, but I was accenting myself as best as I could with certain you know, certain movie knowledge, certain knowledge about rap, like rap terminology, popular culture, basketball associations and stuff like that. And yeah, I think that was like the moment where I really felt like I was headbutting normativity at the most, you know. And there's like many levels of it. It was like it was a racial normativity, a normativity like of masculinity, and a normativity of, I don't know, just like coolness, like belonging, fitting in.
Yeah.
Broke my leg very gruesomely. Almost lost my ability to like run until I was like, fuck that, I'm gonna go hard on the PT. Fully recovered and transferred schools to a public school, Hamilton, where some of the members of Odd Future went. Fucking new boys like did the You're a Jerk song. A bunch of other people went to Hamilton High School in Los Angeles. I'm forgetting them. And I kind of like began a reset. Still playing basketball, but I began to think more and more about like defining myself after being ridiculed in some ways. Maybe it's not as severe, but a little bit like ridiculed for just who I was. And I don't think that's unique to me. It's not a sob story. I think everyone goes through it, and that's why I can kind of understand it now. But I just maybe was in a position where I was an easy target. And fortunately, I had family members around me and friends who I still were in touch with, and outlets like drawing, writing, and sometimes doing like joke little rap songs and shit. But yeah, I just kind of, there was a transitional period in the last 2 years of high school where I kind of just was figuring out what I wanted to do. And then my senior year of high school, obviously, you know, talking about youth, we structure it in school years, mostly. I found myself having this desire to express myself verbally, outwardly. Because I wrote a novel in fucking high school, and it's like, you know, it's whatever. It definitely sounds like it was written in high school, but some of it's actually like there's some definite literary potential that was there. Especially as it gets to the end, I'm like, you were kind of, you had style, man. You had a voice. You had a way with the pen. Because I've been writing, you know, I still have a fucking draft of that. I have like 3 drafts of that novel. Never gonna touch it again. Yeah, I think it was partially like kind of being comfortable with myself, being comfortable with my identity, whatever that meant. And I found that I was into poetry, and then I had some exposure to musical instruments. My stepdad, who came into the picture in like 2002, when I was about 8 or 9 years old, he is a film composer, music composer. So he tried to get me to like play bass, and I didn't really take to it, but I still, kept my instruments and stuff. And I never really had that much musical training. So I knew if I wanted to do music and I had this idea about expressing myself verbally, and also I kind of wanted a way to express my cultural identity, rap music just seemed like a logical conclusion. And obviously, as you start things, like, they're rough. I was not a prodigy. I worked because like I listened to shit that I made in high school, and so it was like, this is I was not Bishop Nehru, I was not Nas, It was definitely like learning like how I wanted to express things.
Who do you think you were trying to emulate at the time, or what were your influences?
Oh, for sure I listened to like a lot of Tribe, a lot of Nas, a little MF Doom. But like, yeah, I mean, really like mainstream golden age rappers.
Okay. So you weren't onto the local LA underground at that time?
Oh no, not at all. I was like, my level of isolation didn't quite lead me where other people did, where it was like on the internet you kind of find these things. When I was on the internet, I was just like looking up video games and like weird literature. I wasn't necessarily finding community and belonging through music. Which is interesting because like I had to catch up on that shit later. Like there's a lot of gaps in my knowledge because I was not a teenager who was on the internet scouring forums or going through LimeWire and shit like that. That's just like, yeah. It happened differently that way. I mean, I definitely, but I also listen to like fucking, Lil Wayne and Gucci Mane and a lot of like Southern rap that I definitely like inflected some kind of swag in there. That was the 2010s, the early 2010s. So, it was still high kind of swag rap. Production was pretty fucking awful in the mainstream, not gonna lie.
I mean, what kind of lyrics are you writing at the time? Are you trying to be poetic, or?
I think I'm poetic, but I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of like, I wouldn't say obvious, but there's a lot of wordplay where I'm trying to get you to understand it's wordplay. They were trying very hard.
Yeah, and where are the beats coming from? Are you making the beats?
So I was like ripping, like, I was remixing like popular tracks, like, a few Ghostface songs, a few Nas songs.
Right.
What else? I remember she was kind of tight. I did rap over one of the instrumentals to the one of the raps in Sonic Adventure 2. I remember one moment that was like the spring semester of my senior year, where some friends of mine who I'd made music with a very long time ago when I was first trying to play instruments and it just didn't resonate for me, they had an event that they were throwing and I had been working on this verse, and at one point in the night, the mic opened up and they were just playing beats and I spit the verse perfectly, from my head, and everyone was like, whoa, dude, I didn't know you were a rapper. That was crazy. Yeah. And it was actually one of my better verses, I will say. One that like, I think I carried over into my time at college to like rap on. But by today's time, it's just like, oh man, that's just like basic underground rhymes. Definitely can't. I can't rap those these days. Well, I could, but it doesn't resonate. It's not where I'm at. It was a very good start.
So basically, around 16, you sort of embrace your uniqueness. You start rapping and recording.
It's closer to 17, maybe 17 and a half. I quit basketball by writing a 12-page letter to everyone who ever coached me. And I basically, in the nicest way, say, fuck off. Like in a very cordial way. I'm like, this game has taken too much from me. I'm done. I have a bigger life to live. And It was really interesting because, I'd always done well in school, but like, I think there was a partial racial component too, a partial like just stupid kind of mindset that I was around where everyone was like, oh, the only way you're going to go to college is if you play ball. There's like, dude, I was like 3 levels of like, if I didn't have a school administrative error, I would have been taking like calculus in the 11th grade, like I just like, I was ahead in a lot of ways and I was an athlete. But the athletic part just seemed to take predominance in people's eyes. And yeah, I didn't really like think about college outside of that. But fortunately at the school I transferred to, they had a college access program and I got a scholarship, partial tuition remitted to go to Wesleyan University.
Where is that?
That's in Connecticut. It was a very interesting experience at that school. I think over 4 years, I really took to heart that like reinvention of self and getting back in touch with myself. I tried to, access all realms and all parts of me and never let them die. But, like being involved in the IT department there, playing video games with the IT bros, playing intramural basketball, starting to earnestly rhyme. And my stepdad gifted me with Logic Pro and a $200 MIDI controller.
Uh-huh.
And I started to make beats because I just didn't want to use like classic beats. I had a moment of realizing like maybe sometime in my freshman year where I just realized I really want to get freaky with shit and make shit that like really involved all of my influences. I think I didn't mention it, but I remember like a big formative moment for me was getting a TV on the radio's Return to Cookie Mountain on CD at like 13 because my mom got it for free from a friend who used to work for like in the music industry. And when I heard that shit like changed my life, and I just realized there was a principle in that where they were, I think in their music in general, but in that record particularly, where they were doing really just out there shit, but it sounded good and it invited you in.
Yeah.
And really like, you might still like be alienated or like weirded out by it, but like they could do both. And so I think I started to figure out like, I want to do something different, but I want it to still rock. And I didn't really like, definitely on the West Coast, on the East Coast, I think there were a lot of kids who had like very traditionalist ideas about rap and stuff. And so I got involved with this group called Rap at Wesleyan. They call themselves Raw. It was really funny. Mm-hmm. And it was an interesting moment because I think you have to find yourself in juxtaposition. So I definitely defined myself a lot. Because a lot of their tastes were so reined in. And I wanted to reach out of that. And they definitely inspired me to like get my technical, just formalist stuff up. But I found myself constantly on the edge of something else, like incongruous, incomprehensible in that surrounding, but it was still supportive. So it was a cool kind of circumstance that I, was in and surrounding I was in.
So the music was a little bit different from the others in your peer group there, but it was still embraced to a degree.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I definitely would. We have a weekly cipher, and I would just bring beats that I was working on, and they wouldn't sound like anyone else's. And that got more and more obvious as I was like a junior and a sophomore when my faculties started to really match my taste, which was deepening. And at the time I was listening to, I was going deep. So I was exposed early to like freestyle fellowship and stuff like that. But I started to go kind of, the third generation or second generation from them.
Right.
So, it's really started to get in like Open Mike Eagle, Bus Driver, fucking Quale Chris, Jeremiah J, Homeboy Sam, man, just a lot of people like that. That was a very good entry point into entry point. It was a very good affirmation that there was different shit out there that I could also be a part of.
Yeah. I think the earliest tracks I could find of yours were from 2013. You had Calculus Johnson.
Colored playback, circle race music track, sour diesel, oil change, puff, puff, pass, smog check, pass, liner notes with ink black, 3,000 miles swap residue, hue so dark, tones walks the blues, opaque, Y chromosomes, find homes, mastering the mix of city grooves, bruise headstock, cop corner stop, beat is drop, first measure, click spot, the prison composition, arrangement, sans volition.
Calculus Johnson was part of a project that I took offline because it was just not mixed very well. It's called Death by Diversity. And at the moment, no one understood what I meant. I kind of quite didn't understand what I meant, but I was commenting on like, the Cory Booker, Kamala Harris phenomenon, Clarence Thomas phenomenon. They're not the same, those three. But where it's just like representational diversity still works within the system if you don't deconstruct the system. And well, your executor might be the same color as you, but that doesn't make it restorative.
Right.
No, that project was fucking wild. I opened, and that's how I knew I was doing something different, because I dropped that the spring of my freshman year. And there was a short story that opened up the thing where I wrote a short story over like a heartbeat about an autopsy. It was Death by Diversity, the autopsy. So I was like describing being killed by like, whatever. And I remember this one dude who was like kind of the big shot senior who was like, I mean, I feel bad making fun of him. He's this like white dude who was trying very hard to be like a rapper, dope rhymes. And he heard that and he was like, I heard your record. Yeah. He just walked away. He was like, yeah, it's weird, bro. But yeah, I continued to drop projects out there, and I would come back to LA and I forgot to mention, when I was growing up and we moved to Leimert Park, I met all these people as a kid. I met, my homie Verbs. I met Ben Caldwell, who runs Chaos Network, where Project Blowed was running for forever. And I met a bunch of rappers. Like I think I ran into Nocan, when he was just around hanging out. And then when I came back to town every break, I realized, oh shit, Bananas is going on in my backyard. Bananas, that's connected to this thing called Project Blowed. Wait, Leimert's here. Wait, my aunt lived here, and I was here when I was like 7 years old when she used to live here. And I know this place. And there was just this like, it was very interesting how I was connected to this source. And as I went away, it brought me closer to where I had come from.
Right.
And I just started to really reach out to people. I mean, I was an awkward fucking person in my early 20s, near the end of my college my college years, when I was starting to go to events.
What was your major, by the way?
It was originally fine arts, but I ended up doing American studies. So like some kind of comparative literature that involved some theory, post-colonial studies and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, because it didn't make sense for me to specialize. I wanted to do an English double major, but I was like, I want to be an artist who is studying things to inform my creations.
Right.
So yeah, about my junior year, I kind of really started to figure out like this scene I wanted to be involved in. But mind you, I was still writing strictly literary things and I was working on visual art, but I found like the music just kind of, I got the performance high from performing, the bug. I got, I don't know, it just started feeling more and more like a very, very proper intersection of so many things and so many talents that I had and I was cultivating. I started to like, as a young person in my 20s, like fucking didn't know how to talk to people at all. Not in a bad way. I was just super shy and fucking awkward. I would continue to see Low Ends 3 was still going around. I would, when I was in town, I would just go to every event and I would see, all people in Hellfire Club, not just the 4 dudes, but that everyone knows, but all of them, down to like fucking William Thetford or Kale or whatever, and Burbs and Alpha MC and fucking even Anderson .Paak and shit like that. I would just see them everywhere, try and talk to the dudes, and I was just like, the rapper, and I'd met him once, not knowing who he was. But I met Kenny Siegel and found out that he was kind of behind mixing on a lot of projects at that like 2013 to 2015 era.
Yeah.
And I didn't harass him, but I definitely like put on like, I'm just a young dude, I'm trying to do it out here. And as I was finishing my senior year, I put together this project called Aggressively Ethnically Ambiguous, and he mixed that after I harassed him.
Aggressively, ethnically ambiguous, academically rigorous, study me times limitless, text on me, your pub, branding your bucket list, well notated, jot me down with your contrived prefix pronoun, speaking me into existence, try to bifurcate my sound, fuck it, Bado me and flash, made by kilns of blue skies, alloy metal mixed with ashes, bridges burnt by eyes, Cyclops new, disparate too, the foil love aluminum demons, scream at MacBook, titanium, in darkest populations, organ breakbeating sun, Navy or gun.
And I went to a studio in LA, and that was like a big moment for me. I remember being in the studio and like being so nervous, just freezing up. And I could tell like, oh fuck, this dude definitely is not gonna want to hang out with me after this. Because he would just ask something, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds cool. Just like really geeky and nervous. That was my whole thing. Still is a little bit sometimes.
You know what? Before we go further, we haven't talked that much about like your production. You had this project called Don't Delete.zip. I was looking at the notes on that. It says, I had a complex about my beats not being complex enough, and truthfully, some of these aren't. To drop it, I dropped this. Now let's make the music we want to make. I was wondering if you could elaborate on the thoughts behind that.
Well, being a fan of artists in the beat scene, trying to get people to rhyme over my beats because I had too many that I wasn't using. I don't know. It felt like, it still does. Feels like my beats don't really sound like anyone's else's explicitly, but I definitely have an insecurity about being not musically trained. And feeling like I don't know, everyone kind of knows more than I do about music, and like I'm guessing, and it's like sometimes like getting shit right musically like is really hard for me. Like I have to really try.
I mean, that's kind of interesting since almost like no hip hop producers are musically trained, I would assume,
Yeah, or like I don't know, maybe just the fact like I got into it late.
Yeah.
But I think like the beat scene kind of having these really kind of intricate or like beats that have this particular sound, that have this particular wave to them. I love that shit, but I've just never been able to make music like that. And I feel like that's kind of cast me on the outside sometimes of the producer game in LA.
Sure.
No, I definitely think I also approach production differently just because like as much as I did listen to a lot of, I did have a lot of rap music around me and like R&B, whatever, growing up. A lot of my like earliest music I heard was alternative and alternative rock.
Right.
And I kind of had recently been able to do that more and more, but I always felt like I couldn't articulate certain things I was interested in because until recently I couldn't really play any guitar, bass, or even fucking figure out things on the keyboard that much.
Right.
And so I think there's an overthinking that's involved there. The reason people don't want to use my instrumentals is because they're not good enough, or just because people don't want to use them? do they sound different because they're not as advanced, or do they sound different just because they come from another approach? So I think, every artist has an insecurity about that. I think particularly with production, it came out, it was born from necessity. Me not liking a lot of the beats that were around me, them feeling a little too caged,
Mm-hmm.
a little too, if not trendy, then like kind of playing on conventions and playing on what was safe a little too much for me to get free on the production. Till about 2017, I really had like a really hard time calling myself a producer,
Right.
and feeling like I was a musician.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so much politics about like rappers not being considered musicians, and
Sure.
a lot of that is like dog whistle fucking language. A lot of that is also just like rappers themselves not even like respecting the fucking craft too, just being like, well, I'm gonna just do this, so yeah, it's interesting, man. I don't know. It's interesting, but I like that was I like that little insert I wrote. That was important to me at that time.
So throughout 2019, you're continuing to release stuff. You got a couple projects, Master Fader on Speed Dial, and then the TC Wash Suite. When I caught up with your music was in 2020 with the Language Arts Unit album, and it seemed like you reached a much wider audience at that point, maybe?
Yeah, I think honestly I haven't reached a wider audience since, probably. So that's definitely a peak a lot of people got put on. But yeah, that Language Arts Unit, I mean,
well, a lot went into that album, it seemed like.
I started writing lyrics for Language Arts Unit like in 2015 or 2016. And some of those beats, like there's this, like the beat for Morning Becomes Apoplectic, like that shit, I started that beat in 2014. But a majority of them, like maybe 8 of the tracks that made it onto the track listing, I was mixing and remixing those songs, like just getting the mixes incrementally better, torturously so, for like 2 years, 3 years. And those were the experiments for me to learn the fundamentals of engineering on. But I really took a concerted effort because at that point too, I had put out some releases. Things were kind of not artistically, like I just wasn't really finding, I don't know, like partial projection, but like my music wasn't being taken seriously. So I said, man, I need to have this shit sound good. I need to make a statement. I need to do this. And for me, I've never been someone who's been like, well, if it's dope enough, like, especially if it's experimental, you can make it sound like shit and it's fine. I've always like, I think the TV on the radio kind of, even like listening to a lot of Talking Heads growing up, like shit can be fucking weird, but it can be funky. It can sound good. It can like really, the system that it works in, that system can be fucking left field as shit, but it can all be working to make it shaped properly.
Yeah, I mean, as a listener, I really appreciate the kind of depth of your production, and that album, I feel like it really jumps out. It's got dimensions, and yeah, there's a lot of very lazy production in hip hop that's kind of seems to be sort of a trend for the last few years. But I think maybe over time, for a lot of people, it's already kind of lost its luster. The sort of ultra lo-fi, just making a simple loop and rapping over it gets a little tiresome for me as a listener. So
yeah, I mean, I like it too, but yeah, I definitely, I mean, I don't know. As a critic, I have to pull myself back a little bit because sometimes I go too hard and I listen, and I'm one listener. I'm not, everyone else.
Yeah.
And I do think a large reason for like music in general being mediocre is because it takes a lot less to make a good sounding song, like technically.
Yeah.
And so the revision process is not as much considered. But I've moved, as I've gotten more mature, I've moved from thinking I'm reinventing the wheel to just being like, am I doing something I haven't done before in whatever capacity? So Language Arts Unit definitely is like a crystallization of that. And then also the book, I think, I've been inspired by multimedia artists, multidisciplinary artists. I think the explicit inspiration for Language Arts Unit would have been, the work of someone like Saul Williams. He's gone between disciplines. He's doing that right now with his Martyr Loser King Neptune Frost project.
Right.
Really inspiring. I think the Language Arts Unit in 2020, I have been working like trying to separate myself from the pack.
Yeah, it seemed like it was like your magnum opus at the time, right?
At the time, yeah. And honestly, I think if COVID had not happened, it would have really propelled me into some other opportunities. And it's taken me a while to like deal with that loss.
Right.
Because a lot of things like fell out. I was supposed to go on tour with like people right now who are popping, things were moving without me pushing them, which has not happened since.
I was also thinking though how like 2020 could have been a double-edged sword in some way for you, because it seemed like there were a lot of artists that year that required close listening that kind of blew up. And there's a sort of theory that like since everyone was stuck at home, people had more attention to pay to a project like that.
I became a brown man in Los Angeles on a magazine cover. Man, the color mumble, doing the view, the fumble. My line scrimmage down in Elliott County inches. Became a black man downtown with a U-turn in a business district between my verse and Spurbo.
I remember people like trying to discourage me from working on the book. They were just like, everyone's stupid. No one's going to read that. And I was like, I don't know. I believe in people's capacity to like understand things. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really interesting. And to see that, it was a watermark. I think people understood that. I've been trying to, I wouldn't say recreate that success, but kind of try and get that feeling of momentum to return. And I think that has maybe less to do with like the quality of the work, what I'm doing now, and just the world has definitely gotten fucking crazier, faster.
Yeah.
And I mean, that definitely dovetails into the next project after that.
When he get 12 year playing like, fuck his dudes, shit. When he get 12 year playing like, dog best from industry like, whoa, shit. Okay, yo, fucking with my money, black, Jewish, Creole, mafia. Squad 100,000 grand beats whipping crawfish, Monica like, whoa. Hop in the coupe with a half low type, hop out the coupe for a warm off like, can we wait like the off season of a side towel? Yeah, Keanu Reeves that, yeah, John Wick with a stick. Palo sounds over, we try to, coach your poke on the gunboat, talking the side of one bounce, so give it your bond, it's like shit.
I've been working on these few tracks with my friend Mantra. We put out the Grant Money Raps tape because I couldn't really, go on tour or anything and do any shows.
That's the one with like trap beats, right?
Yeah, that's the one with kind of like SoundCloud, like plug beats and shit. I extrapolated a lot of what I was talking about in Language Arts Unit, specifically on that project. Those tracks were like a definite example of what I was talking about on Language Arts Unit, where like the form does not have to mirror the content.
Right.
Like you can make some shit that sounds and I say this with air quotes for people not watching, listening, that sounds ignorant, but like I'm literally talking about universal healthcare, and like big freestyling about that shit. So it was like the practice behind the theory. And then also with the title, I was being, I was jesting, and I was like trying to divine and summon a grant coming my way. Because and then ended up, I've gotten 2 grants since, small amounts. But I guess the summoning, the seance worked,
Like I was
But
gathering from what you'd written about it that it was like an attempt also to see if like a wider, more average audience would be able to appreciate your kind of complex, deep lyrics if they had simple, familiar, traditional music backing them. Was that part of it?
Yeah, I mean, just like, I think that's my problem with a lot of academic theory, because and it's not the biggest gripe in the world, because like, a lot of theory, kind of is hindered by the fact that the ideas are so essential, but like it's communicated in incomprehensible ways often. So like the essential nature of the ideas is cut off at the head by the fact that it's hard to understand.
Right.
And so that's what I tried a lot to do with Language Arts Unit. The book too was just like, I'm actually saying some shit that academically people are really discoursing about actively. But I'm saying it in a way where I'm cracking jokes. I'm like doing crazy kind of prose poem passages. Like, if these ideas are essential, I want you to want to know them. So that's the musical version of it, right? Is just like, I want to talk about winning a genius grant, but I'm gonna do it over like going like, hey, I'm a genius, you know what I mean? Like, there's ways to reach across the aisle without compromising, and not even reach across the aisle, just be like, yeah, come this way, it's chill, come this way, I think I'm always interested in that. I've always been more of like peacekeeper in general too. And I think that's oftentimes why I've ran into problems with like fucking crazy masculine overcompensating people, is because like they want to have their aggression matched with aggression. And I'm just like, nah, like I'm not, it's not like, I don't want to do that. I think that's just been my general disposition. No.
On the Columbus Route, 10 cents, ye son 11. Shouts to the power of God, bomb at a comedy club in heaven. When faces expressed like a true Lebanese. The run-up Black Friday's colonizer, and occupied is sympathizer. I remove my 2 eyes and set them in a 2-state solution. So eye contact, whoa. I wasn't in, it's what's the name of the society? Testament to a circus tent.
I was like, man, I want to do like an alternative project. I want to do something that has like, that really showcases all the rock that I'm interested in, and all like the alternative music influences that I have. And I think Stalin Bollywood served a very good purpose. I had this impression that people were seeing me as this person who like just couldn't say anything directly. Like I was too poetic and too abstract for my own good. And so a lot of ways, Stalin Bollywood was me just being like, oh, you think I can't say anything directly? I'm going to tell you that the Pope is a rapist. I'm going to call out, Israeli birthright privilege as like some like imperialistic shit. I'm going to make you think I'm saying something by saying holes in my dick because it looked like a drawing of the Prophet Muhammad, And so in that way, it was reactionary, if you know what I mean. Right. And I think it's really funny. It was like my own reactionary projection, but also, some type of stone back that way. It was also just like, I think instrumentally, I really made a rock album like a rap album. You know, I played instruments and looped them and then looped drums, or looped drums and then played full sequences of instruments, and like sampled myself playing rock instruments and added little sparkly bits of electronic production like I would on any other rap song. I feel like that was a win right there, just in the sense of like, I was able to do that. Oh shit, like I got that shit.
Yeah, and it's got a really unique sound. I think it's really well done. Wasn't there also, though, back to the lyrics, wasn't there like an overarching theme of like provocation and like edgelord or like trollish kind of behavior that you were trying to address sort of with that?
Yeah, I guess that was me being like, you know, like, what would it take for me to get noticed?
Yeah.
My art to get noticed? Would I have to be a fucking idiot instead of trying to be like diplomatic and sensitive and stuff like that and just guess? And like, honestly, not like, it didn't really work, you know, in terms of like getting massive listeners or also massive quantities of hate mail. Like,
yeah,
you don't really do much.
I mean, I know you're trying to be direct, but so I still think it was over people's head in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Oh God. I forgot. Sorry, let me just pick up my cat. Quick. Get over here. Oh.
Let's talk about Grapefruit Radio. Give us an overview.
After Stalin Bollywood, I felt like I really stretched stylistically, and I really got outside of rap. And I wasn't really making that many like rap beats per se. So I put out a call for beats, and I got a lot of pretty cool submissions. And I don't know, as I was working on these other albums that are just like hella maximalist, it was nice to just like write bars, not make much structure, not have to tweak any instrumental things. I did produce one track, you know, but like just really get loose. And at the time, you know, a lot of shit in my life is really fucking like going crazy. Still is. I mean, I'm like in pretty bad financial shape right now compared to where I was. And I'm like just figuring out my job prospects. But in like 2021, shit was going crazy. My cousin passed away. I was trying to figure out money. I was in a relationship that just was a little bit emotionally volatile, and I just couldn't seem to get things right. And I felt like stopped in the career a little bit. Like shit wasn't really just moving at all artistically. So there was like some pretty, you know, substantial depression going on.
I guess you probably had higher hopes for Stalin Bollywood's release, and that was part of it.
Yeah, higher hopes for Stalin Bollywood. I really honestly like was lacking the emotional regulation that would come from playing regular shows.
Right.
Like regular shows really like would give me endorphins. I would feel like I was kind of on track a little bit. So without that going on, yeah, and still processing just like language arts unit, like certain plans falling through, and whether they would have been that worked out or not without the pandemic, you know, just like processing the losses of opportunities, right?
Yeah.
There were these little moments where I was just like getting freaky with language. I was just like, I will stop at nothing. I am magnetized and I move. Like, I wrote that in a really bad place.
I will stop at nothing, extend limb of filmability, crushing the sequence, scatter luxuries. And my voice box full of stuff and dressings, fixings, MacGyver, epoxy, aluminum wire. Ready-made, sculpted tableau, portmanteau. Unibroke on Babalo, rust belt blows. Whirlwind knock sheets, body rock, the head spin, the boogaloo, the fail cools on placating cable news. even suspended maneuver staying true. 1,000 platitudes unmoved, unmoored. History setting sound pack loops, auto dictation. Guns at the ballot box of the collective imagination. Critiquing the political ecology.
Things just kind of came. Verses came out. And so I also worked on like, you know, the operator's manual. I don't know, maybe it's a reach, but I wrote it, so whatever. Writing it and getting weird with it and getting kind of in my own language with it was me escaping the reality I found myself in. It was an antidote to depression where I could just like get as out there as possible. But also in the content, you know, of it, there are these allusions to changing the frequency, being able to control, have moments of harmony and stuff like that. Yeah, I think, you know, those were very real expressions, you know, in the book and in just the playfulness of the language and my vocal tone and how I do a little bit of voice acting even in the record. There's an antidote, you know, to feeling really, really fucking worthless.
Yeah.
And horrible and kind of without a lot of hope. A little hope, without a lot of hope.
Yeah, I just want to mention that the operator's manual, the writing in it is really beautiful, poetic, mysterious sort of stuff that I highly recommend people check out. But can you talk about also in the operator's manual just a little bit about the thinking behind the varieties of operations and operators section? What the fuck that is? Because it, like I said, it's beautiful but confusing.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I wrote that also in a really bad place. And it was just me, like I knew a little, I still retained some of my math knowledge, and I was just looking up how waves are expressed, how the math behind frequencies are expressed and stuff like that. And I wanted to find a way, well, you know, on some like sampling shit, you know, to mesh those, collage all those ideas together and make something that was semi-comprehensible and at least would be a through line to carry through the literature component. So yeah, I don't know. I you know, I've also have a interest in, you know, my mom is involved in like in food access and food justice. So I don't know. I know a little about produce, and I was just like, let me just like get silly with this, see what I can get away with by just figuring out different types of grapefruit that exist in our world, and seeing like what little things I can just poke and prod at, and how I can stretch this idea of grapefruit radio out. How can I stretch it? How can I do it? You know, just like an experiment. Like, can I continue to cultivate this idea of grapefruit radio?
Okay, so yeah, I didn't even get that, but now I'm seeing like pomelo, pink, oro blanco. These are all different kinds of grapefruits, right?
Yeah.
And you're writing about them as if they're like different channels or frequencies that you can dial into.
Whatever, however you want to take it. Yeah. You know, there are no exact answers. There might be wrong answers if they're really wrong, you know, if they're really off base, but I tried to make it open-ended and just kind of be whimsical and quizzical, you know.
Yeah, I got a sense with this latest album, like a new like self-assuredness or like a confidence or like a comfort in your own sort of uniqueness regardless of how it's received.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, I think being you know, back to like the beginning of our conversation, getting comfortable with many parts of yourself, parts of myself, I'm very proud of the work that I have done and that I'm continuing to do. And it's been really important for me to be infatuated isn't the right word, but to be maybe in love with the actual doing of the thing, the experimentation. I think moving forward, I'm really interested to I finally found a way to talk about what I do and not feel like I was either embarrassed by it or like it was improper. But, I really feel like my goal in music, I'm interested in putting rap and the broad category of rap and hip hop in places where it doesn't seem that logical to be.
In our bonus episode, you can hear me and Rhys's initial conversation from the week prior. It's a more casual pre-interview talk in which we got into some pretty interesting territory. We discuss his general artistic intentions. He shares some insight into how a listener might best approach his music. And we speculate about why some similarly challenging rappers like Armand Hammer, etc., are enjoying a relatively widespread embrace, while Rhys has remained much more in the shadows. You'll get that, along with all our past bonus episodes, featuring Mike Ladd, Self Jupiter, Billy Woods, Y, Orko Elohim, and many more, for just $3 measly at patreon.com/weirdrap. I would very much appreciate your support. And now we continue the great adventures of Kounterclockwise.
Previously on the great adventures of Kounterclockwise, Princess Lily and her furry companions make contact with Kounterclockwise, but Kaya and Deacon are unable to understand their advanced Catopian language. Kaya instantly falls in love with the cute cats in their tiny Catopian garments and convinces Deacon to give them shelter until they return from the recording session at Lava Sound Studios. Meanwhile, the intergalactic bounty hunter brother Creep is finally able to track Princess Lily's spaceship, the Millennium Feline, only to find a crash site crawling with United States military. And now, the exciting conclusion of the great adventures of Kounterclockwise. Let the adventures begin.
Yo, Fat Mike, turn my headphones up. Get them up. You know I can't hear that good after taking in 5 shots to the ear. Don't make me send kills on in there.
Yeah, don't make me come in there and start slapping some asses.
What? Did you just say slapping asses, man?
Yeah. I mean, no. I said beating asses. Yeah, I said don't make me come in there and start beating some asses. You know that's what I do. Ain't that right, Bloodletter?
Yeah, I heard you, bun. Wait. So you said beating ass? No, you said kicking ass. You said we was gonna go get some ass. No, wait, you got some ass? Wait, what are we talking about?
Yo. Oh, y'all shut the up. Yo, Fat Mike, play that beat.
Yo, what's cracking like this Bloodletter? 112 St. Clair, representing that Trey Thug, know what I'm saying? Got that Trey pound, that Trey A with a fat ass blood in the ashtray. Watch your lip and catch that shit. You know what I'm saying?
Gunshot sounds click, clack, bang, bang. 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 Gunshot sounds click, clack, bang, bang.
Yo, Fat Mike, what's good, man? It's 10 o'clock. We paid for this time slot. What you doing in here? We got an album to finish, man.
Would I look like a moron to you, kid? It's 10:45. You're late, so Trey Thug took your spot.
What? Yo, that's some bull, Fat Mike. After all the money we spent up in here, yo, you either gotta reschedule or give us our money back.
What are you, blind or something? Can't you read? All sales are final. You snooze, you lose,
Hold
kid.
up, Fat Mike. That's not fair. We paid you in advance weeks ago. You have to at least give us the 9 hours and 15 minutes we have left. or let us reschedule the session. Or at least you gotta give us our money back.
Pardon my French, little lady, but I ain't gotta do shit. Besides, it's Straight Bug, the biggest gangster crew in Cleveland. They got a real shot of making it. They even got a deal on the table with Billsy Boat Records. I might finally get a gold plaque on the wall instead of cardboard. You're not about to that up for me, kid.
We got a problem here, Fat Mike.
Yeah, we do got a problem here, my dude. We paid for this time slot.
First off, my name is Gunshot Sounds. Click, clack, bang, bang. And you don't want no problem here, little cripple nigga. So your weird old lady better roll your handicapped ass the fuck out my face before I had kills on here. Put your ass at the bottom of Lake Erie.
Straight
Yeah. Tell them, homie. That's how Trey Thugs get down. Yo, with your handyman ass.
Excuse me, Mr. Gunshot Sounds Click Clack Pow. There's no need to be rude. This is all just one big misunderstanding. I'm sure we can work this out.
Hell yeah, family. We can work this garbage out. Yo, Killzone, take out the motherfucking trash.
Whatever you say, boss. Come on, handy
Yo,
man.
get up off me.
You too, little lady.
Get off me, man. Let me go. Get up off me with your big ass, man. Yo, let me go, man. Get up off me, man.
And stay out. Damn, cripple let me up my Timbs.
Yo, I'm getting really sick of this, man. Been spending all this loot, coming to this damn Loud Sound studio for almost a year now, and we still ain't finished this album. Yo, something's gotta give. We've been making all these sacrifices, putting forth all this effort, spending all this money that we don't got, wasting all this time, chasing this damn dream.
Deacon, calm down. Breathe. It's all gonna work out. Let's just go back home and regroup.
Go back home? Yo, we ain't gonna have a home in a few weeks if I don't come with the rest of the money for the rent.
But we already have the money for the rent.
No, we had the money. What do you think I used to book the studio time with?
What? Deacon? What in the hell were you thinking?
No, man, I'm sorry. I thought if we finished the album in time, we could sell the copies and make the money back for the rent. I was until a Trey Thug's overgrown bodyguard threw us out. How the hell they gonna call themselves Trey Thug when it's 5 members? He can't even count.
Deacon, it's always darkest before dawn. We'll find a way to get by. We always do.
That sounds like quite the predicament you two are in. Perhaps I can be of assistance. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Brother Creep.
Are you in the music business?
Yeah, is you a manager or something?
Well, something like that. Let's just say I can assist you with your dilemma.
You're right. Yo, how the hell this bum gonna help us, man? Yo, you probably live in this alley. I'm sick and tired of these CEO, P. Diddy, baby wannabe, mogul music business types. Yo, do you even know how to make music, my dude? Okay, man, we don't gotta hear this, man. I'm tired of yo, let's just get out of here.
Silence!
Oh, hell no.
Gaze into the smoke and bear witness to the possibilities. Take a toke, but don't choke. Ha 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 ha
A thick green mist pools from the outstretched palms of Brother Creep, as if a spell was cast. Deacon and Kaya felled into a deep trance. Brother Creep snickers with confidence, offering on full display to make their wildest dreams come true.
And there he is, nose to nose with Lance Armstrong. Deacon burns the rags to riches story from Cleveland, Ohio. Here they come around the bend. 30 meters, 20, 10 meters, and Deacon burns his past Lance Armstrong. He has taken the gold. He has taken the gold for Tour de France. And the Grammy Award for musical excellence within her field goes to Kaya Rogue for Crazy Cat Lady, produced by her husband and musical partner Deacon Burns. Let's give it up for them.
Live in New York, Counterclockwise here at Radio City Music Hall. Sold out 10 nights in a row. Get your tickets today.
They did it! They won it again! There it is, Deacon Burns in the highlight reel, messing around and getting a triple-double to bring home the 5th championship for the Cavaliers.
And here we are up here, even though we weren't nominated.
However, we do have the Oscar winner in this envelope. And for her role in Bill Plimpton and Jim Lou Jones' Revengeance,
Kaya Rogue!
Oh, what's he doing? He's going to the all-around. Is he going to do a nollie? Is he going to do a handstand? He did a handstand! Oh my God! His hand is on the rail! Oh!
and here coming up, we got the one, the only, 5th night sold out, Madison Square Gardens, Counterclockwise. Give it up, let me hear it. Let me hear it for Counterclockwise.
No thank you, Brother Creep, but I think we could work this one out on our own.
Here, take my card, just in case you change your mind.
Incoming call from Lord Creep. Incoming call from Lord Creep.
Lord Creep, my master. Was the invasion on Catopia a success?
We have the planet surrounded. We have the Catopians running scared. Women and children cower at the mere mention of the creeps. There is no way for any Catopian to get off the planet without us knowing and intercepting them. So how can we not find the princess? One princess. Is she immune to our tracking?
Master, she's just a mere cat.
No, she is an important cat that we cannot afford to lose.
Yo, this episode of The Great Adventures of Counterclockwise was sponsored by...
Hey, yo, what's up? This is your boy Danny Fingerman, lawyer at law, and all lawfulness and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm a lawyer, that's right, because I got credentials, son. Credentials. Don't believe me? Check my wall. It's right there, boy. Anyways, if you fall down in a supermarket, if you get hit by a shopping cart, even if you fall down in your own home, give me a call, because I will represent you, and I will represent with some ducats, son. That's right, I'll win you all the money you need. Danny Fingerman, let your fingers do the walking, and I will do the talking to the judge. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no half-stepping in court, only full-stepping. Yeah, dog.
Thank you for listening to Weird Rap. If you're so inclined, please check out the website for our music releases, t-shirts, and much more at weirdrap.com. I've been your host, The Bull. I love you.